Hello. In this video, I'd like to talk about the Alexander technique. My name is Jennifer Roig-Francolí. I am a professional violinist and a certified Alexander technique teacher. I'm an artistic mastery coach teaching exclusively online, and I specialize in helping musicians of all kinds, all skill levels, all kinds of musicians, all ages except kids. I mostly teach college age and older. But what I'm helping people do with the Alexander technique knowledge and expertise that I have as a teacher is to identify habitual patterns of thinking and moving that cause excess tension in the self that blocks us from being able to do what we want to do in the way that we want to do it. So specializing in helping musicians, that means I'm helping musicians to identify habitual ways of approaching your instrument that may actually be getting in your way instead of what you want. I mean, we all want to play well, right? We want to make great music and we want to enjoy it, and we want our audiences to enjoy what we do. So our intentions are always good when we approach our instrument, but very often we're approaching our instrument with tension that we don't even know is there. Sometimes we know that it's there, especially if there's performance anxiety or if you're having difficulty with a technical passage and things just don't feel like they're moving freely or flowing, or if your musicality feels stuck in any way or blocked, so you don't feel like the emotions inside of you that you feel so intensely are able to be expressed easily. So in this video, I want to talk to you about Alexander technique a little more specifically, and I'm going to answer any questions that might arise. And welcome to everybody who's here. I'm seeing that Angel is here. Hello, Angel. Really glad you could make it today. And if you're watching the replay, please just say hello also and throw your comments in there. Throw your questions out there. Ask me anything you want to know about making music with more ease. And I'm talking about physically with more ease and mentally and emotionally with more ease. So any questions basically about being a musician and enjoying life as a musician and making great art, this is fair game today in our question and answer session. Hello, Bethany. I just saw that you came on. Hello. Yeah, say hello if you're just coming on, and then we can have more of a conversation. So to start out with, I'm just going to dive in and answer the big question that is always coming up. What is the Alexander technique? So I already addressed it a little bit, but I want to talk specifically about how it helps musicians even more. So, because I already talked about it a little bit, but to get even more specific, musicians come to me with usually one of several broad categories of problems that they want to have solved. Musicians are too often in pain. So pain is a big way that Alexander technique can help musicians in pain relief, managing pain, dealing with pain, preventing pain, right? And not just pain, but physical discomfort can be improved and gotten rid of through the Alexander technique. I've had countless students come to me when I was teaching at the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music on their faculty. Countless musicians would come to me with tendinitis or carpal tunnel or neck pain and stiffness or back pain. So many musicians have back pain. And I've worked with tons and tons of professionals, and I've played with professionals around the world as a soloist and as an orchestral player, chamber music player. And there's even research on how many professionals are in pain. It's just really sad. I find it very sad how many musicians are in pain and really don't have the skills because they haven't been taught and they haven't learned how to prevent and manage and overcome pain. Very often, we don't even want to admit that we're in pain because, you know, if you're a professional, maybe and playing in a professional orchestra, perhaps there's a stigma or a fear that your employers might find out, and it's a little scary. If you have pain, you don't want people to find out. But the problem with that is that then you're not likely to get the help that you need. And too many people push through pain or assume that it's inevitable to have pain and it's just part of the game. Well, it's not. Music making should not hurt, and it should not be stressful to the point that it causes you physical or emotional pain, right? Now, the people who are not in physical pain, many of them have emotional pain. So I mean, pain is a very broad category, and everything that we do in the Alexander technique is looking at the whole person. It's a holistic way of looking at life and looking at the person. What I mean by holistic is that we're paying attention to the musician's mind. What are the thoughts that are going on in your head right before you go on stage? What are the thoughts that you have when things don't happen in the moment the way you had rehearsed or expected, and you've got 1,000 people out there, or even 5 people out there expecting you to play well, right? What's going on in your mind? So there's the mind, but then there's the body. Everything that you think, every single thought you have is reflected and conveyed by your body. You can't get away with having a thought and not have it affect your body for better or for worse. You cannot separate the mind and the body. They're one thing. It's all you. Okay? So Alexander technique looks at the junction, the unification, the unity of the mind, body, person, the self. Now, I personally like to include the concept of soul and spirit. To me, that is essential, but I always give a wide freedom to everyone I work with. And mind and body, we can all agree on. Soul, spirit, that's up to you. You are free to think of yourself the way you wish, obviously. So, but when I teach, there's an understanding in myself that emotions and energy and spirit, whatever that is part of the big picture. Okay, so I'm looking at the whole person and how our thoughts particularly influence the rest of what we're doing and how that influences the music that you make. So pain is a huge category that Alexander technique can help musicians with. Pain and physical discomfort and emotional pain, emotional discomfort. Performance anxiety absolutely fits under that umbrella, although I usually think of it as something it's in itself. Performance anxiety is a mind-body issue, right? You have physical symptoms when you get anxious to go on stage, right? What are some of the symptoms that you out there have experienced? Maybe now would be a good moment to check in and hear from you. If you have any kind of performance anxiety, how do you experience it in your physical body, right? How do you even know that you're anxious? What happens? So just throw some of that out there while I'm talking, and then I'll come and check and see what you've come up with in a moment. But performance anxiety, depression, overwhelm, stress, those are all things that the Alexander technique can help musicians with. Now, something else that is really ubiquitous, like everybody's got it, is simply excess tension in the body. When you have excess tension, you may or may not know it, but it's always interfering with the results that you're getting. So to make it really visually clear, if I'm an uptight, tense, stressed out person all the time. I am a bundle of nerves, right? And that means that I am triggered all the time. I'm probably oversensitive to everything. And I may go into a startle pattern really easily. I mean, a fight, flight, freeze response. So I may be intense and driven, or I may be fearful, but it's all excess tension, right? And there are differing degrees of it, of this excess tension. Alexander technique first teaches you to observe yourself and become aware of the tension that you don't need to be carrying around all day long. And you definitely don't want to bring that excess tension into the practice room or on stage, right? Here's the visual example I was going to give you. If I'm all tight and tense and stressed out or angry or upset or just really ambitious, I'm going to bring that tension to my violin playing. Now, this looks really tight for me, especially for those of you who know me out there. This is super tight, but people play like this all the time, right? When I go to a concert, I see people playing like this. And what I find sad is that many times audience members see that kind of intensity and they equate that with a musician being passionately involved in what they're doing, okay? Yes, they're passionately involved, but they're passionately involved with a huge amount of psychophysical tension. Now, it is absolutely possible to make great music without all this, right? And it is possible to be incredibly volcanically passionate from the ground up through the heart in a way that is expansive and explosive in the best kind of way, which is conscious. It's above board. It's happening through your whole system, from your gut, through your heart, through your mind, body, whole self, nervous system, musculoskeletal system. Your whole self can be integrated with passion in a way that gets huge so that you can play open and free and your sound gets open and free and expresses itself. That's what I teach. That's what the Alexander technique can do for musicians who want sincerely and humbly to make stellar music that touches your audience to the core, to the heart, from your core, from your heart. To be able to move audiences that way with your music, you first need to be moved, but allow yourself to be moved. Now, you are not going to be fully and freely movable if you're blocking free movement with excess tension, right? So that seems pretty obvious, right? The problem here is that most people are oblivious to the amount of excess tension they're carrying around. And the tension you carry around all day long is the tension that you necessarily bring to your music making. And if you're unaware of it, you're not even aware of how you're interfering with the music you're making and how you're blocking your own potential. So there are great musicians out there, multitudes of them, great musicians who make fabulous music with tons of excess tension that they don't need. They may be at this level. They may be stars, right? They may be great musicians. The problem is that, well, it's not a problem. The reality is that they could be making music like out the roof, up to the stratosphere. They could be so incredibly phenomenally good if they weren't capping it with the tension that they don't even know is there. Or they know a lot of it is there, but they think they need it to make intense, passionate music. And that is simply a misunderstanding. This idea that you need a lot of tension to create great music. It's a misunderstanding that we have been taught to believe over our lifetimes by other teachers, musicians. By watching those tense, famous musicians, we believe that it needs to be like that, but it doesn't. I believe strongly that the best music making flows spontaneously through an open and free psychophysical system. Okay, so again, Alexander technique helps you with pretty much anything you're struggling with, because it all starts in the mind and it all travels through the body and out your musical instrument, whatever instrument you play. Okay, so that's kind of my big picture overview of what the Alexander technique is and how it can help musicians. If you want to know more specifically about how it works, traditionally it is taught in person with hand. The teacher, the Alexander technique teacher, uses his or her hands to gently touch and inform and guide the body. That's not the right word. I mean, it is the physical body, but it is the self, right? It's a teacher making physical contact with the student and having an exchange of intelligence, really, and experience and kinesthetic information. That's the traditional way that Alexander ended up developing through his life. But Alexander, and I'm not going to go into the story about Alexander right now. I've done that in other videos and other places, and you can find that online anywhere. But Alexander himself had a performance issue. It was vocal, and he solved it himself by watching himself, by observing himself, by practicing, by inquiring, by experimenting to find out what he was doing to cause the vocal problem of hoarseness on stage when he was performing. And over a series of years, over a period of years, he discovered what he was doing to interfere with his natural expression, natural and free projection. He figured it out by self-observation and experimentation. And he wrote it all down. And he said, anybody can do what I did if they do what I did. He also added, but nobody wants the discipline, right? So there is a way to learn what Alexander discovered and apply what he learned to solve his performance issues for himself without the aid of a hands-on teacher. It's possible to follow his example as he wanted people to do and learn how to solve your own performance issues. Of course, you need someone to guide you, to teach you how to do that for yourself, and that's where I come in, bluntly, right? That's what I help my online students in my Alexander Musicians group classes and in my private coaching, artistic mastery coaching sessions. That's what I help my students to do. And they learn from day one how to take care of themselves, to observe themselves, to become more aware of what they're doing, how to undo the excess tension patterns that they've learned over a lifetime, little by little. And they find that they get freer and freer and freer in body, mind, and spirit, and their music making and their sound reflects it, right? So there are specific ways to think that influence how you move and experience life, and that's the Alexander process that I teach. Okay, so enough of my lecturing here. I would love to know if anybody out there has any questions for me about any of this. The Alexander technique, anything specific, general, music making, life as a musician, any aspect of life as a musician, anything goes here. I'm just here to respond to anything that comes up for you. Okay, so I'm going to go over and check and see what's coming my way, if there's anything here. Okay, so I asked this question earlier on today to those of you out there, I wanted to know what happens if you experience performance anxiety, and specifically what happens in your body. How do you experience it? How do you know that you're experiencing anxiety? And Angel says, my body gets tense and my fingers don't move as freely. Right. And Alexander discovered through observing himself for years and observing other people too, that it all originated in the head, neck area, that all tension starts and ends and is influenced by and influences the neck, right? So there's a special area between the skull and the spine that must be freely movable so that you can have a free head. You can have a good head on your shoulders, balanced. You want to have a balanced mind, body, self. It all starts up here. And what happens in your body is an effect of what happens in your mind, right? It's sort of there's a loop there, and mind affects the body, body affects the mind. But this is where you get to have what Alexander called constructive, conscious control over your whole self, right? Okay, so Bethany says back tension. She experiences back tension when she gets nervous. Bethany says, I arch my back towards my cello and I end up making my shoulders pull against it and it makes my entire back ache. So first of all, bravo, Bethany, for being so clear on what your habit is, right? Many, many cellists are doing that and they have no idea that they're doing it. So it's already half the battle won that you're aware of what you're doing. Now, my next step, or next question for you to follow up on what you're noticing is, well, there are several possible questions, but what is happening to your head neck area? Is that something you've ever considered in relation to your back pain, right? And you can even try it out now, just for anybody out there, you can just try it out. Go into a pretend performance anxiety position, and how would you play on stage if you were feeling like that? And I can guarantee to everybody out there, if you do that, you're going to have more neck tension than before you did it. Again, this area is key. Okay, so find that out and really start to get curious about, if I'm experiencing this in my body, what goes with it in my mind and my mood, my emotions, right? And if I feel these emotions, how do those emotions show up in my body? Awareness and self-observation are everything. That and patience and trusting that your system does start to heal and overcome issues when you have a process that's clear and you're following the steps. That's where Alexander Technique comes in. It gives you that very clear step-by-step process to become more aware of what's actually happening in your system. And it gives you a very clear path, very clear steps to how to proceed, right? How to think in a way that is going to help you rather than hurt you, and take you out of stress and anxiety and overwhelm and back into a more centered, balanced way of approaching your experience, okay? Out of fear into love is what it comes down to. So are there any questions coming to me from out there? I'm not really seeing any questions. So I think maybe that's going to be enough for today. I just wanted to come on and give you just a little bit of a taste or an overview for those of you who've never heard of Alexander Technique especially, and also for those of you who've been involved in the Alexander Technique but really might have wanted to have a reminder of how it can help musicians and what we're really after in this way of working. So I hope you enjoyed this today. And oh yes, come on over and join my free Facebook group. It's the Musicians Mind Body Practice Tribe. If you're not already a member, come on over and join us. I'm going to just post the link for you right now. It is right here. It's the Musicians mind-body practice tribe, and we talk about mind-body performance issues and Alexander technique all the time. So you can ask me a question anytime in the Facebook group, or message me privately through my Facebook page if we're not friends. I'm friends with everybody, just about. But if we're not friends on Facebook, you can message me through my Jennifer Roig-Francolí business page, or through, if you're a member of the Practice Tribe, you can message me through there easily. You can also send me an email if you have a question. If you're curious about how to learn the Alexander technique, as I said, I teach exclusively online, and it works. It's the real thing. It's what Alexander did for himself. It's his process. It's back to basics, pure Alexander's discoveries. And it's in a hands-free way of teaching called Primal Alexander. I use a lot of the ideas developed by Alexander teacher Mio Morales. And also, if you would like to just start experiencing the very, very first step, I would like to give you this link to learn the best warm-up etude that I know. It takes 2 minutes. It is called The Cycle. It was developed by that teacher I mentioned, Mio Morales. I have a 5-day challenge, and I dare you to do it, because 100% of the people who've taken it have had positive results. There are no negative side effects, and you absolutely will notice benefit if you follow these steps, which is, I mean, it takes like 5 minutes a day. Do it for 5 days, and then let me know how it goes, how it went. Give me your feedback. I always, always love to hear from everybody I'm in contact with here on Facebook or YouTube, wherever. Okay, so thank you for being here. And oops, there's a comment here. Bethany says, Facebook has been having problems with comments showing on live videos. Just, oh, I didn't realize that. That's good to know. Thank you, Bethany. I appreciate that. So if anybody's watching this replay, or if you were not able to post your comments live, please just share what you've got, ask your questions anytime, and make sure to tag me in the comments so that I can see your comments and your questions later. Okay, so come on over to the tribe and join. And if you want to learn more about Alexander technique, ask me about my Alexander Musicians group classes online. It's for musicians of any skill level, any instrument. And if you're interested in private work with me, I do artistic mastery coaching, and you can ask me about that. Okay, so enjoy your practicing, be well, and lots of love always. Bye-bye.